Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is a USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our work to promote play, we've introduced these Porch Play Chats. These are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are, and you can find all of them if you go to our website at ipausa.org. Up in the top right-hand corner, be a friend on our Facebook page, follow us on our Instagram page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is one of our board members, Miriam Beloglovsky. And Miriam, we're so happy to have you.
I am so excited, and so I'm sorry, it's really early in California. And I'm also very honored to be part of IPA because you guys are amazing.
Oh, well, we love you too. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Miriam, then her topic is amazing. As a professor of early childhood education, she's a sought after speaker. She's written so many books. All you have to do is Google her name and up pop. How many books now, Miriam?
I think I just published the 8th.
Oh, 8 books. Oh my goodness. And she is the CEO of Playful Transformation. So this is a wonderful website that has so much information. And she did it because her goal was to engage and inspire and motivate people around the world to explore the power of play and to embrace how play is a vehicle that transforms everyone's lives. And so Miriam really believes that play is the catalyst for change, and I absolutely agree with her. And so we need to be thinking about play not as something that children do for recreation, but as something that children do and adults do and teenagers do and seniors do. And so it's so important that we see play, the importance of play across the lifespan. So Miriam is going to talk to us today about unscripted materials and how they bring equity and nature into play. Ooh, I just love this topic.
Yeah, and let me clarify. People may know unscripted materials as loose parts, and you know that I've written all of co-wrote 4 and written one on my own about loose parts. The reason I'm changing the name and using a different name is because I think loose parts have been taken to places that they should have never gone. Places like loose parts for ABCs, loose parts for data sheets, loose parts for Valentine's Day. So it sort of have lost the idea. And the way that I look at these unscripted materials is how do we bring equity into spaces? And the value that I give the objects is not just the object itself, but it's a connection that the children make and the actions they create. And that is what is crucial. And I think especially for children who may have some sort of diverse ability, regardless of what it is, when we bring these unscripted materials into spaces, it allows them to engage their bodies, to engage their senses, to engage their creativity, to engage their whole selves. So I'm on this mission for equity. I really am an advocate for equity. I want to have every child, I want to make sure that every child has the opportunity to play. And this is where I get a little bit of pushback because everybody thinks that children will play regardless of their circumstances. And I'm going to say, yes, they will. However, shouldn't we have the responsibility to create these ecosystems, these play ecosystems where children can actually engage in play in a more consistent basis?
So I think one of the things that you just said that struck me is that we've taken this concept of loose parts that we've now switched to unscripted materials, and we've used them for academics instead of used them as opportunities for children to explore and create.
Yes.
And that seems to be the path that we feel pressured to go down instead of just giving them access to these materials. And the equity piece really comes with programs who struggle to purchase, the sets of manipulatives or the sets of unit blocks. There's other ways to do that so that those children have access. And so how do we help convince people that what you're using does not necessarily have to have the academic ABCs, 1, 2, 3s focus?
We have to keep on saying it, but we have to get really good at understanding that there's certain levels of, especially in the United States, we have these increased need for quality assurance and for standardization. And many times us in the play community deny that, when the people that are working in the trenches with the children on a daily basis have the responsibility to talk about it. So we have to get really good at doing the yes and, yes and. We can have, I just did a presentation, everybody at the end was saying yes and. This idea that we got to get good at saying, when children are playing, this is what is happening. This is how you can look at your standards and see how they're being met. This is how in California we have the DRDPs. This is how you meet the observational tools that you have, or the developmental tools that you have to fulfill. We cannot just say children need to play, especially when we wanted to talk about equity, because one of the things that happens is that, people in the more affluent communities will be okay because they will have other opportunities. So a lot of the times there has been this push that academics is the way to success. So when you're starting to talk to people that are in more less affluent communities, they connect the academics with what their children need to have.
Right. And every family wants their child to be successful.
Be successful.
Absolutely. And I agree with you, because in my college classroom we play all the time, and I just give them loose parts, or now I've scripted materials that I have, and they play unrestricted for long periods of time, and then we go to the standards. And I have every small group take a content area of the standards and figure out which standards they met in their 45 minutes that they're adults. So I only gave them 45 minutes of play. And there was one night that they did that, and I would have them tell me what standards they were that they met, and they would read them, and I would just put the numbers up on the whiteboard. And at the end of students doing that, they had met 41 standards in 45 minutes without me telling them to do anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what people don't recognize, that I hate the term play is learning, but play
based.
It's yes. Oh, play based. Oh yeah, please.
That one's driving me crazy.
Driving me crazy. Yeah. And but we do need that both in conversation, and we need to find a way to help people make that connection, instead of just saying play is child initiated, free choice, unlimited time. I mean, those are all important, but to help these teachers make that connection, to ensure our classrooms are providing opportunities for every child, regardless of ability, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of economic status, to do this, instead of saying we're going to drill and kill you because we need to catch you up.
It's a lot of system change that needs to happen. And here's another piece that I think it's important for us, in play, as play people, to acknowledge, is the fact that there are communities where there are no play spaces.
Right.
And, you know, going back to this idea that in the past, I mean, I remember growing up, the mother sitting outside while we kids played. There was a sense of community that took place. Of course, I grew up in Mexico and in a fairly affluent community, so my experience is a little bit different. But getting back to that core community where schools can become the hub for play.
Mm-hmm.
They can open them on the weekends so that they can be pop-up plays, or they can be libraries where families can come. You know, how do we begin to create spaces in communities, especially where they may have the fear of letting their children play outside because there's a lot of gang activity happening? So we need to be very good at articulating that importance. And I don't think we speak about it enough. There are areas that I have worked in where children don't go out to play. And then they get to school and they get drilled and killed. So we're seeing that children in those communities are not getting the same opportunities to be outdoors.
Exactly.
And the lack of nature is beginning to impact them. There is hope, though. You know, I am always thinking there is hope. I did a 2-day institute in a local community, and one of the participants who was very reluctant, I thought they were going to start throwing tomatoes at me at one point. At the
That's when
end,
you know you're getting to them, though. That's when they know. That's when you know they're listening.
I know, but that's when they do a lot of the complaining too. So anyways, at the end, one of the people that was very reluctant at first comes up to me and she says, you know, I took a look at your conversation around risk. And I always talk about the risk compass that we all have. Mine may be very different than yours. So you need to sort of know where you stand. And she said, and I did it when, as a child's perspective, when I was a child, and then I did it now as an adult. And I can see that as a child, I was ready to do a lot of things. As an adult, I'm not. And that was an aha moment for her. So I think it can be done. I think we just need to keep on bringing it, and we need to push back, but push back with the language that they will hear. I think that's been our disconnect in the play community and the academic community. You know, how do we show that play is truly that vehicle that supports learning?
Yes. And that is, I think that is the key to it. Play is the foundation for all future learning, right? Because they do Bruce Perry's learning cycle in there. If they have opportunities to choose where they want to go, and if they feel safe enough in their environment, so that relationship piece, that creating these safe spaces, nothing is going to take place in learning if children don't feel safe and respected. And I think that's a big hole that we've dug ourselves, where we have to do this, and it doesn't matter how you feel, or it doesn't matter what happened before you walked in the door. So I want to go back to unscripted materials and using them as a way to, I hope, get children out in nature. But if you don't have nature around you, what can you do with those unscripted materials to bring nature in?
So I've been doing lately lots of research around this idea of biophilia and biomimicry. And it's fascinating. I mean, I first heard about it through Sandra Duncan, who has done a lot of books on environments. And now I have done a deep dive. You know, I'm a researcher at heart. I love reading. So the term is Wilson's, but also comes from, and I'm really good at finding the theories, because I think that's another piece we need to do. We need to come up with the theories. And biophilia is the innate need that we have as human beings to be in contact with nature. We have urban communities. That doesn't mean that it cannot be brought in. You know, I have had really profound conversations with Hopi Martin in Canada, where I asked him, I said, what do you do about nature? Because he talks a lot about the Mother Earth and the land. And he says you can find nature everywhere. So a lot of the times is learning, biomimicry is about learning from natural systems. So think about your schedule. What can we learn about the natural systems that can help inform our work with young children? So we think about winter is that moment of hibernation. So we need to sort of create those rhythmic moments where our spaces, our temporal spaces, can learn from the natural environments and bring it forward. In learning from the land is what Hopi calls it. So how do we begin to really bring in? It doesn't need to be that everybody has to be in a forest school, because that's not a reality. It's a wonderful thought, but it's not a reality in an urban community. But how can you bring in natural materials instead of so much plastic?
Oh, please.
And that's where I love the unscripted materials, driftwood and pine cones and acorns, and walking around and just the trees in your community. You will probably find wonderful representation of the context in your community, because I think that's also important. Not that just we say, oh, look, I brought a pine cone from Lake Tahoe, near here, but I bring in the things from your communities as well. The wood, natural wood, water inside, sand inside. We have gotten to these plastic sensory bins instead of just bringing in back sand. To me, those tables are for sand and water. That is bringing nature back to children. Water relaxes you. Having the sound of water, having the sound of birds. So what do you bring into the space can make a huge difference. The other thing is, and this is, I give credit to Sandra for this. I'm really good at giving credit where credit is due. The roundness. I love round tables in particular because you can see each other. That facilitates communication. And children who are deaf need to be able to read your cues. I think all children should be able to read those cues. So rethinking about the way we approach the materials that we bring in will make a huge difference.
I absolutely agree. And I did a porch play chat with someone in New York who has in Manhattan who went outside on walks with their children in the busy streets of Manhattan every day to look and see how the trees down that are between the sidewalk and the street had changed since they were last there. Or what did the children see on the sidewalk as they were walking that they didn't see last week? And then maybe they would collect some things that they had found and bring them back to the classroom. And she said that was one of the most favorite parts of their day was, and they had a playground too, but going out into the neighborhood, into the community, and exploring and looking for things that were the same or different from yesterday was fascinating to them. And so it doesn't matter where you are, you can do that.
You can do it.
You can do it. Just take them out. And if she can do it in Manhattan with 3-year-olds, you can do it anywhere. So
anywhere. And I think that here's another piece that comes into my mind as I'm listening to you is that's where we, again, as play people, need to begin to understand that there's also those moments that are playful. And there's a difference between playfulness and play. So they all go hand in hand, because some people may say, well, that's not play, it's organized and they're taking them outside and they're looking for things. But there's a joy that comes from those moments. It's a playful joy. And they're connected. So playfulness is key as well. And playfulness is like play is an action, and playfulness is the reaction that we have from the action. And I always say, you build a tower, the tower topples. You laugh when it happens. When it topples, that's the joyfulness, the playfulness. When you're building it is the play.
So, and I think that's a great distinction, because many times I would take my children outside because we were going to go on a walk or something. So it was certainly teacher led.
Mhm.
It wasn't teacher directed in they would have to do a specific thing when they were out there, like collect loose parts. I've seen teachers
Right.
take children out into the forest and say, okay, go collect things that you find on the ground for us to bring back, which is fine. But we have to see the difference if they want to come back in and make a nature collage or something that has a teacher purpose
Right.
that you're asking the children to collect. So I think it's those little those differences that we can do both and,
Yes.
but I think we need to recognize the difference in the definition of what play is,
And
what
sometimes different.
playfulness is.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's crucial. The other piece I was going to bring is if you look from the indigenous perspective, you're taking things out of the forest. There's some programs that bring in things into the forest when the forest itself is providing for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What responsibility do we have? Because at the end of the day, when you talk about biophilia, it's also talking about sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we have a responsibility to then bring those materials back into nature? It's
Beautiful.
part of the process of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So, playful moments combined with play, where children are in full control, can really lead to the learning. In this case, sustainability and appreciation for nature,
Mm-hmm.
which, as you know, Richard Louv talks about that we have growing generations that are vitamin N deprived.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
They are not, they're not coming up with respect for
Mm-hmm.
natural spaces. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a responsibility that we as educators need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
How do we create these natural spaces for children with the respect and with the intention? Maybe we need to start talking about intention instead of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody very wise said intention. So when
Mm-hmm.
you have intention, there's always tension.
Yes,
I get it.
I love it.
So how do we create that intention and be brave enough
Mm-hmm.
to speak for that? And I think that's what we can do, in
Mm-hmm.
this play community, is really become critical friends of each other,
Mm-hmm.
push back a little bit. It's not always one way.
Right.
So
There are
how do we
many ways.
get more inclusive so
Mm-hmm.
different voices can come in, and then with all these diverse perspectives we begin to make more sustainable change.
Well, and we begin to get allies, right? Who
Yes,
don't feel like they're wrong and we're right. I hate that right wrong thing.
I do too.
And so then we broaden the advocacy for play, understanding that there are many different definitions or many different approaches
Mhm.
to people's ideas of what play is, and many with really definitions, right? Because I've been with teachers in classrooms who said, well, we play. And I said, oh, wonderful, that's wonderful. And then I go in to observe, and they're rotating children every 15 minutes.
Right.
And so, I take them aside and I said, how is that child choice? And I said, it's not that you can't do that if that's what you're required to do, but where in the day is there time for children to choose where they're going to go, how long they're going to stay there, who they're going to play with, instead of being directed with who they're going to play with and where they're going to go, and
Mhm.
the activity that they may be doing. So I think there's a huge, people talk about the continuum of play. I think a lot of times in my head, I'm over on the less adult interaction and more child initiative is where I am. But that doesn't mean, when I was teaching, I had an adult led choice that children could come to during their child initiated hour and a half block of play in the morning and afternoon, plus outside, right? So there's a balance. There's a way to balance it so that you feel like you're meeting the needs of administration, whoever they may be, but you're also meeting the needs of children.
Yeah. And I also think we need to start talking more with, you know, I give you one example. Part of the work that I was doing this week, we talked about stepping back and not enter into children's play.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asked me, how does that meet class?
Oh boy. Yeah. I
And
know it's the stupid assessment systems. I apologize to all the creators of all of this. And I know you had good intentions. But
yes,
but
but that's what we're dealing with
yeah, yes, yes. And so
is having conversations with them that we need to do.
yes. And what, it's because they're I know when Thelma Harms and Debbie Cryer and Dick Clifford wrote the environment rating scales, their intention was not what people interpret their intention to be. The authors of class, I'm sure they had wonderful intention. We're trying to enrich these language opportunities and interactions with children that are positive. But the outcome is not all how people interpret that is, oh, it's a checklist and I have to be a 7 or I have to be whatever it is. So I do think there has to be, and in some state systems, like in the quality rating and improvement systems, which had good intentions, whew, not great outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think that can be said for everything. So whatever we determine or whatever we say or whatever systems change we're asking for, we have to make sure that we look ahead to what's happened in the past.
Right.
Because, whoa, I mean, you just look at No Child Left Behind. Whatever you believe, whether that was good intentions or not good intentions, it's your choice to choose. But look at the outcomes.
Yep. But it's money driven, so we need to recognize that as well. I think that's where I think we play people can come in and have those courageous conversations that say, you don't need to enter the children's play to engage in meaningful conversations and demonstrate how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
We just cannot anymore just say, oh, let's just let them play.
Yeah.
We got to say yes
and yes, and I love that. So maybe that's in the what we were talking about in the beginning, the white paper. Maybe that's something that goes in the very top, right?
yes and.
Yes, it's yes and. So, Miriam, this has been amazing. We have to have you back. Uh, and and I think what our listeners can really focus on is that don't don't be so either or, be more both and. How can I do this and provide this? How can I take children out or bring nature in? One of those needs to happen so that children can learn about their environment and respect their environment and see the beauty that's out there. And you will be amazed if you take them outside on a regular basis, the difference of when they're inside. They're calmer, they're more focused, their their attention is better. It's an amazing change. I even do that with my students. Take them outside. We go out in our back 40, which is forest. We are just walking and talking as we're outside. We come back in and you can just see them
Relaxing.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
and
that's
there's
what
a lot
nature
of
does to
research
you.
on that.
Yes.
I just gotta give one little shout out to
Okay.
my friend Michelle Grant, who really is the one that taught me the yes and philosophy.
Oh, yay.
And we actually wrote a book, is Promoting Equity Through Play,
Mm.
that talks exactly about this.
Oh,
And
great.
it's that's, I had the anxiety about it before, the passion for it before, and bringing it together in deep conversations with Michelle about academics and how they still need it. And she's the one that started explaining to me that, we cannot just say no,
Mhm.
because I have a child that is going to go to kindergarten and they're going to be asked to do things. So we still have that responsibility. We can just say, oh, let them play. If you have the finances, if you have the resources, privilege, yes, you will be able to. But if you don't, how
Mhm.
are we serving communities?
Well, and the other way is to document through play what children are achieving that
Mhm.
align with those state standards. I think that's where we really need to do a better
Yeah.
job. Just like those students who were like, we did what? I
Yeah.
said, you found them. Just listing them
Yeah.
up on the whiteboard. And you're like, I can't believe we did all of that. I said, I know.
Mhm.
That's what I'm trying to get across to you. If you give them opportunities to follow their own interests
Yep.
and to really delve deep into what they're doing and to play with who they want to play with and to be able to assign roles, it is amazing what they accomplish.
Absolutely. So let's get to the yes and.
Yes, yes, and we love it. All right. Thanks so much. I'm going to close this out. Don't go anywhere. To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.